I'll be talking about Charles Darwin and his research, and what I'm wearing is my Darwin tie to remind me to point out that Darwin published about 30 volumes in his lifetime, not just The Origin of Species, but The Origin of Species is what he's most noted for. One of his publications, Charles Darwin, The Expression of the Emotions in Man and the Animals, came late in his career, and if you caught the legal pickpocket the other night, Paul Ekman, who's written about Darwin, has pulled upon Darwin's work on proxemic behavior and how to read body language. And Darwin was interested in this in the 19th century when he studied his own children. Darwin also wrote about barnacles. He's published about barnacles. He wrote this book. It took about 8 years. When he was doing it, he eventually won a gold prize for it. And his children went to other people's homes and said, "Where does your dad keep his barnacles?" So it's not only The Origin of Species he's noted for, but lots of things. I'll give you some Charles Darwin facts, Darwin trivia and facts. Emma and Charles Darwin. Emma was his wife. Darwin and the Origin, and Urbanowicz and Darwin Part 1 today, and then Part 2 tomorrow. Perfect timing with the Victorian show tonight. On Darwin and his facts, he goes around the world on the voyage of the Beagle from 1831 to 1836. He's a relatively young man. The Beagle was going out on its second circumnavigation of the globe. The British Empire is in a growth mode, and they are looking for new harbors and facilities. I love humor. I love humor everywhere. The airline pilot was wonderful. I finally found that book I've been wanting to get you. How nice. Darwin and the Beagle. If you do not know about Darwin and the Beagle, this little cartoon from Schultz just sort of goes over your head and you lose out on it. He goes out of England. He goes down to South America. He's hopping around. He spends more time in South America than anywhere else, in 3 years, where he's fossicking, he's climbing the hills, he's going and riding with the gauchos. You'll be seeing a lot of this in the video. And then eventually, after South America, he does suffer some various rough seas. He goes up to the Galapagos Islands, about 600 miles, 1,000 kilometers off the coast of South America. And it's from the Galapagos Islands that everybody sort of thinks about Darwin, but his South American research is also very impressive. And then the Beagle continues on from the Galapagos, and he eventually gets back home. I've always been interested in Darwin as an individual, as an anthropologist, and the transition one makes from being a young person to an elderly individual that we sort of all maybe have a tendency to view Darwin as. You can do a lot of research on the web, and Google is my search engine of choice, and I don't have any stock in Google, unfortunately. But if you type in Charles R. Darwin, there's something like 538,000 hits talking about Darwin. And Urbanowicz on Darwin is the fifth most hit spot on the Google search engine. They have various algorithms, so I'm out there on Darwin and the web. If you use another search engine, Charles R. Darwin, this is Bing, something like 8.7 million hits on the term Charles R. Darwin. So if you do a lot of web work, be careful what search engines you use and how you make your statements. Interest in Darwin got me interested in Victorian times and Queen Victoria, born in 1819, dies in 1901, and we have a vision of her that way. Once upon a time, about 20 years ago now, I was in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, and I came across this portrait of a young Queen Victoria painted by the American artist Thomas Sully. And Sully had gone to England. He had painted Victoria. His daughter actually posed in some of her robes, and that picture just sort of struck me as a young Victoria. And so I was interested in the transition from the young Victoria to the one that we sort of visualize of the old lady in perpetual mourning after Albert dies. Stanley Weintraub has written a very interesting book on Victoria, and there are a lot of things that have been written about the Queen. Some Darwin trivia and facts. This comes from another Simpsons episode, Mr. Burns, who is running for governor of the fictitious state, and he brings in an actor dressed as Charles Darwin. And what you'll see in the presentation coming up is my interpretation of Charles Darwin with an American accent, but I try to humanize Darwin and point out his facts and his foibles. The idea of presenting Darwin in the first person is not necessarily new, and other individuals have done it, although I did come across this book after the fact. Richard M. Eakin was a professor at the University of California, Berkeley, and he would address 600-700 students in the audience dressed up as Darwin. This is Darwin in his lower corner, and other scientists, again trying to humanize the scientists. Question has often been asked, someone asked me this on the cruise, was Darwin wrong? Darwin wasn't really wrong. For the times that he was operating in, he was extremely correct. Frank and Ernest, let's see, I'm here, Oog's here, Wonk's here, Zerg's here. Now where the heck is Link? There is no such thing as a missing link. Evolution is a paradigm that works. It's an ongoing process. It's a jigsaw puzzle that we gradually piece together. What Darwin didn't know, Darwin